Well, hello everyone. It is May 20th, beautiful May 20th, and we are here for another COVID-19 briefing, joined, as you saw a moment ago, by a couple of guests today. We have Dr. Stephen Leffler, and then we're going to hear from, we can call him the donut guy with a beard, Mike Chanerick. Will be joining later on. But let's start with Dr. Leffler. Welcome. We so appreciate it, Dr. Leffler, that you join us for these Wednesday briefings, especially when you bring with you good news and positive data here. I do think this is positive data. We'll get to all the conditions and the caveats and the warnings in a moment, but let's just take a moment to look at that downslope and appreciate the fact that right now, 2 months into this emergency, I think that's indicating there is one inpatient with COVID-19 in the hospital right now. Dr. Leffler?
You've got it right. We have one inpatient, and we have 2 people that are under investigation, but only one inpatient. No one in our ICU right now. No one on a ventilator for at least a couple of weeks. So really positive news.
I'm going to ask now. So this is. Again, these are inpatients with COVID-19, which is a little bit of a trailing indicator of the virus levels in the community, because it takes quite a while from the time someone becomes infected to when they might have symptoms so serious that they become admitted into the hospital. It's several weeks usually, right, Dr. Leffler, from infection to...
Yeah, I mean, 7 to 14 days in that range is if you're going to get very sick from COVID. It's usually in that, after the first week to the second week is when people typically have been getting very ill.
So another positive sign is not shown on the screen, but we know that the number of new infections, that people test positive, has also continued to be very low here in Chittenden County and in the entire state of Vermont. I was going to ask Olivia to pull up maybe to switch to the images out here. She's going to pull up the COVID Act Now website, which is tries to aggregate a bunch of different metrics and assess the readiness for reopening that different states have. And this map's a little different than the last time we looked at it. I think we looked at this. I think we didn't. We had you on the town meeting last Tuesday, so you weren't with us last Wednesday. I think we showed this on Wednesday. It was an even redder map. New York was red then, and really the only other continental state with any green on it was Montana, I believe then. Now we can see a few other states have hit levels of readiness that these data scientists and public health officials are saying, but certainly Vermont's still standing out there in the East Coast, North Atlantic region. I get asked all the time by constituents, Dr. Leffler, why do you think Vermont is having a different outcome, or is it in a different place right now than so much of the rest of the country?
I think it's a number of things. I think the most important thing is I think Vermont as a state early on took a coordinated, relatively aggressive approach. So right off the bat, our government, our governor, our Department of Health, our cities and towns all came together with our health officials and hospitals and providers came together and said, let's all do this and be consistent across the state. And so we really did really a great job of social distancing. We went to masks pretty quickly. We built in things to very quickly get people to stay home and avoid each other, which is how you stop the spread of the illness. I also think Vermont has some advantage. We're very rural. If you look at the states that really are green, they're mostly states that are rural or where people can relatively easily socially distance. So states like Vermont, Montana don't have huge amounts of mass transit. They don't have the subway. They don't have things like that where one person on the subway could infect a lot of people. So I think it's a combination of the natural way Vermont is. We're a very rural state, and our population and our leaders across the state were aggressive and consistent in our approach.
I think that I appreciate the point. third element there is, I think that Vermonters, did such a, I think you said this, but I just want to amplify this, that Vermonters did such a good job with this. We know that there's been like traffic data showing that Vermonters did a much better job actually staying home under the stay home orders than many other states. And so, that's why I really think every one of us should feel some credit and some ownership in that. And I think it's important to focus on that because our work's not done, right? So now let's talk about the kind of where we go from here. This is not a one-way ratchet. Just because things have gotten better doesn't in any way mean they can't get worse again. And I wanted, maybe Olivia, we could pull up the next slide. I'd love Dr. Leffler's take on this. This is, one of the things I think we're doing here in these briefings, Dr. Leffler, is just sort of trying to learn together about this new environment and how we manage our way through it, navigate our way through it. Last week, one of the just outstanding public health writers of our time, Dr. Atul Gawande, has written so many great pieces. This one he came out last week, I thought was a quite interesting piece, focused on how, his point was that the hospital system he had been part of has had this 4-part strategy that has really worked well over the last couple months in terms of protecting hospital workers and keeping other people from being infected when they were in the hospital. I know UVMMC has had a similar, very successful record. He attributed to these 4 different kind of distinct strategies and or kind of almost like buckets of strategies. And then he actually adds a 5th one in of culture and just having an organizational culture that supports these and talks about how you really need all of them layered on top of each other, working with each other. I'm curious what you think of this framework, if you think he has it right, if there's anything you would see it differently, and then maybe what I'm sure on everyone's mind who's doesn't work in a hospital, like, do we think these are principles that have broader application to the rest of the community?
So I had the opportunity to read this article when it came out, and I actually think he got it almost exactly right. If you look across the country, hospitals have done an extremely good job. Not many hospital staff have gotten infected across the country, relatively low numbers, very, very low numbers in Vermont. And it's really based on these 4 principles. We know hand hygiene makes a huge difference. It turns out that masking is a great way for you to protect others from COVID-19. If you're carrying it and don't know it, you wearing a mask is something that you can do to help prevent other people from catching COVID. Social distancing, we've learned a lot about. And so I become more optimistic every day that there is a safe way to reopen Vermont and the country. And it's based on using these principles broadly. And it's not always going to be easy, but there is a path forward until we get to a vaccine. So if you look across the country right now, in general, COVID is decreasing mostly across the country. We don't know all the reasons why. It could be the warmer weather. It could be that most people are using these factors. We're still doing some social distancing, but we know these work. We know if we do these 4 things, hospitals have been very safe for patients and staff. And there's no reason to think we couldn't use these broadly to keep the infection rate low enough to manage in our hospitals while carrying on other normal care, which is the whole point of what we've been trying to do to this point with mitigation.
That's great. I think it's worth noting that that success that American hospitals, a lot has been written and said rightly about America's failures in this pandemic, but some things have gone better than others. And I do think this is a bright spot. And it's not a foregone conclusion that I've noted in recent days that a huge number of healthcare workers in Russia, for example, are getting infected. So it's, sorry, just a noise outside passing here. There's some, this is a success, and I do sense as well, this is a success that certainly anyone running an organization, even us as individuals, should be thinking about these discrete strategies and how they layer on top of each other. And we're going to need these for a while. You know, we're going to need these as long as the virus remains dangerous, a threat to us. There are a variety of ways that the threat may diminish over time. The big one, the one that there's a lot of focus on, and there has been some news on in the last couple of weeks, has been on vaccines. Can you speak, Dr. Leffler, to your kind of just take on how excited should we be about that trial last week indicating, you know, one vaccine got through this early stage? How are you thinking about vaccines and the hope regarding them, the timeline regarding them in general?
So as a scientist, I loved the fact that the vaccine had positive results in a subset of the patients that they gave it to. So I believe they gave it to like 24 people, if I'm thinking of the one you're talking about, and 8 or 9 people had a reaction where they were able to generate antibodies. So just from a procedural standpoint, we know that you can give vaccines that help people make antibodies. That's great news. The trick is going from 8 positive results up to treating 1 billion people and treating people that have all kinds of other health conditions. And then actually knowing that the vaccine does prevent COVID-19. Just getting antibodies, how many do you need? How long do you have to have them for? How long will the vaccine work for? So I think that people should have confidence now that we will get a vaccine. We know you can give something that makes people generate antibodies to COVID-19. Going from there to actually having it out and available for the public in broad ways and knowing it's safe is going to still take some big steps. So I wanted people to remind people that most people who get COVID-19 do not end up in the intensive care unit and have serious illness or die. Some people do, and it's more people than they get the flu, but it's still the minority. So if you're going to give a vaccine to 1 billion people, you want to make sure it's very, very, very safe. And there's work to be done there. So I think people should be cautiously optimistic, and I think people should be confident that a vaccine is in our future. How soon? I think there's a bunch of other things that have to fall into place perfectly, but we'll get a vaccine. I'm confident in that now.
We have a bad case in our history as a country of a vaccine that went out and in the 70s, right? When President Ford was in office, that I remember reading a case on in graduate school that it shows the risks of prematurely. I think there's still debate about whether they did the right thing or the wrong thing. It was an opaque decision, but there were a lot of people that got sick from the vaccine.
So, like I said, I'm encouraged that they have a good result early on in a very small number of people. There's a ton of different people working on this. So I think that, best case, sometime in 21, we have a vaccine. Probably, I don't think we will not have one for the fall. We won't have a vaccine rolling out in September, but sometime in 21, we could have a vaccine that we would be confident was safe, would be available to the broad swath of Americans.
So I know we're going to lose you in a moment, and before you go, Dr. Leffler, can you just speak to, I know that just as we're talking about reopening, restarting various elements of the community, the hospital's going through that process as well. You reported that in the past. How's that going? And are you seeing a significant increase in the number of people coming in for other procedures?
So we resumed elective surgery last Wednesday. It's gone extremely well. We've been able to take care of a lot of people who are very patiently waiting for procedures. We've done it safely. They've had good experiences. It's been great. We've gotten some staff back to work, which has been good. And we've gotten a lot of people care that they were waiting for. And we're expanding that every single day. We're hopefully soon we'll be able to do elective inpatient surgeries. That I think is going to come soon. But we are providing a lot more care than we were 10 days ago, which is great for people who've been waiting.
Excellent. Good. I know there, as I mentioned to you before, I actually have people out in grocery stores and whatnot stop me, and we're eager to see that restart. I think it's another positive sign that those procedures are underway, and why don't we let you go on that note, and we'll see you back here. We'll see you back here next week.
Thank you. And the last thing I would just add is we've been shown that we've been doing it very safely. We've been testing people coming in. We've seen no increase in COVID-19 across the state of Vermont with our hospitals resuming elective care. So I think people should be confident that the steps we put in place, similar to what's on your graph right now, those 4 steps, are keeping patients and staff safe, which means that it's safe to do more cases, get more people through the system safely. Thank you.
Good. Well, that's great to hear. And it is great to see that in the numbers. It's not just your numbers that those infection rates have stayed low, even as we have seen some careful steps towards reopening in other areas as well. The infection numbers statewide remain, and here in Chittenden County, really remain quite low. We'll be watching that carefully. I'm really encouraged that the state is increasing the testing capacities, having more sort of surveillance testing, kind of proactive testing in high-risk groups. Like some of our first responders were tested in the last couple of weeks, no positives there. So, right now, things are going about as well as one could hope, I think, right now.
I agree with you.
All right, Dr. Leffler, very good. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us. We're going to hit a couple other topics. I see we have some members of the media with us. We'll open it up for questions in a couple minutes.
See you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye.
I wanted to talk about Church Street. As a lot of people know, the governor green-lighted the restarting of retail statewide on Monday. Not that some retailers have, in fact, now reopened. Others are, for a variety of reasons, have not reopened yet. The sense that we are getting is that it's not like turning on a light switch. Like we said, it's not like everything is suddenly back on. That's not what anyone is shooting for, and that's not what anyone expects. You can see, looking at that chart that's up there now, this is over time, the amount of activity measured by cell phones and the duration of stay of cell phones on Church Street. You can see that the last couple of days there has been a bit of an uptick from where we were immediately preceding it. And those actually are the 2 busiest days. You have to go all the way back to mid-March, late March there, to find the last time we had more activity happening on Church Street. Makes sense, and is a step in the right direction. You can see, of course, that this is still well below the even midwinter or late winter conditions of the first part of March that you can see all the way on the left side of the graph. But an indication that things are headed, incrementally, cautiously in the right direction. We want to keep it moving in that direction, and we think a way to do that is to do everything we can to ensure that customers, people who come to these retailers, are safe. And so what the council did, if you think back just to the slide we were looking at a moment ago, we know that these 4 major strategies: hygiene, distancing, screening, and masking, face covering. It's one of these fundamental strategies. This, on Friday, the governor gave municipalities the ability to require face covering, and on Monday night, our legislative body, the city council, did that and required face coverings in retail stores. I want to make sure that that is clear. I saw some misreporting on this out there, that this does not apply to all Burlington businesses or all Burlington buildings. It applies to retail stores at this point. Perhaps it could be expanded in the future, but the focus right now is on retailers where there are substantial numbers of customers coming into contact with substantial numbers of staff. This now requires, since the staff, the employees were already required by the governor to have masks on, as all essential employees and now employees in any business are required when they are coming into proximity with others. This now applies to customers as well. I think we want to bring up the next chart here. Olivia, this is a poster that you're going to see a lot of in downtown Burlington. anywhere in Burlington where there's our retailers. Masks mean business. I think this really conveys quite succinctly and effectively that public health is good for business. We're not going to, the way to, it turns out the strategies that suppress the virus and that are going to keep us healthy are also the same strategies that are going to allow people to come out and participate in our businesses again and feel safe doing so. We now welcome to the briefing the bearded Mike Kenrick, former mayor's office, chief of staff, and longtime colleague. Mike, it's so great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you and to be here with you on today's briefing. I haven't been so focused on my hair and beard lately. That will come. But on to serious business. Masks mean business. And the idea here, of course, is there's nothing more important than the safety of our families and our community. But as we look out for that safety, we also are looking at reopening the economy, and we've taken careful steps. And so we want to make sure that everybody understands how we can keep Burlington running strong and how we can keep businesses open and open more significantly. So as you mentioned, the City Council did pass that resolution on Monday night at the Burlington Resource and Recovery Center homepage, burlingtonvt.gov/resources. Folks can click right into the Masks Mean Business page from the homepage slideshow. This poster is there, so Burlington retailers can print it out and hang it in the window of their store. In fact, earlier today, the RRC employer lead sent out an email to more than 800 businesses with a link to this poster. So we encourage businesses to get the poster up. We like the consistency of the message with folks around the community using these posters so people realize this is official. We're fortunate in Burlington that even though this is a requirement, our community is always leading the pack at doing the right thing. So thanks for wearing that mask. It not only helps prevent the spread of COVID-19, it protects you and your family members, and therefore allows businesses to stay open and to keep running. And we'll continue to promote this campaign through the RRC, through social media channels from the mayor's office and CEDO and Burlington Electric and other city entities. Will promote it through the community front porch forum. We will also post advertisements, as we have been doing with 7 Days and the North Avenue News. And I just wanted to take a moment to let the public know, if they don't realize, it has been mentioned by the mayor several times, but the COVID-19 challenge has really brought together so many different city departments working in ways together they haven't before. And I just wanted to give a special thank you to the good folks at Burlington City Arts, led by Doreen Kraft, but in particular to Ted Olson and John Flanagan, who are the talent behind these great posters we've been producing. And they're great because they're informative and they're helpful, and they create a unified message that people can understand and get behind. Is there anything else I can share, Mayor?
Mike, thanks for your, I'm not sure I fully properly introduced you as, not only one of our managers at Burlington Electric Department, but during this period, having served really overseeing the communications from the RRC. Thank you for doing that extra service and everything you're putting into it. The communications have been outstanding, and the fact that you and the team were able to move so quickly to get this really clear imagery and messaging out to retailers is really appreciated and really important. Retailers, I want to be clear, many of them were asking for this. They thought creating a common standard that everyone would be using would be helpful. I have heard questions. I want to really be really clear there. People ask how's this going to be enforced? Well, mostly it'll be enforced because the great majority of people want to do the right thing, want to keep each other safe, and I see in settings where people are coming into contact with each other, I see a high level of compliance with the requests, the guidance for face coverings in general, and I expect that that's going to continue. And Vermonters have done that throughout this crisis. I expect it's going to continue when people are going into retailers. The city is not going to be writing tickets. There's no there will be no stick from the city for people that don't comply with this. But people should understand that retailers, establishments on their own can decide that they don't want to render service to anyone who is not complying with this public health regulation. So that is people should understand that. I've actually seen less so than people complaining about it. Mike, I don't know if you have seen any of this. I actually really appreciated seeing some communications from customers, from people saying they were traveling from many miles away to Burlington to shop here, or will be this weekend, because they appreciate that they'll be able to do so in a safe environment with masks required. Any other communications you've seen come across your desk? Any other reactions to this you want to share, Mike?
Not to this specifically, Mayor, but in general, we've gotten very positive feedback about the communications coming out of the RRC. And that's a good segue into just reminding folks that they can email the RRC at recovery@burlingtonvt.gov. Folks can call at 755-7239. And also, just one other quick thank you. There's a really hardworking behind the scenes individual, a colleague of mine from Burlington Electric named Adam Rabin, who is the person who answers the call to create a new page on the website in an hour, or to create a new page in 45 minutes because there's important information to communicate. And on behalf of the RRC, I just want to thank Adam for the work he's doing. And there are so many others involved, but he's one of those behind the scenes unsung heroes worth mentioning.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike, and thank you, Adam. I know again and again, Adam's also the guy behind the scenes making the webinars that the RRC has been hosting. Work. There will be another one of those tomorrow, I believe at noon. Is it, Mike? Tomorrow there's on veterans and.
That is correct. Tomorrow at noon, there is a webinar on emotional health challenges and veterans during this time of COVID-19. 12 noon tomorrow, the mayor will provide some welcome remarks, and then we have a great panel of folks that'll be 1 hour long, and you can join the webinar right from the RRC homepage via Zoom, or you can call in as well.
All right, well, great. Thank you, Mike, again for joining us. Why don't you stick around, see if there's any more questions on this initiative. We got a couple of final things to do here before opening it up for questions. Speaking of masks, speaking of face coverings, the BTV Community Mask Initiative has distributed, we announced last week, we had reached the milestone of distributing 20,000 masks throughout the community and to essential workers. The distribution from here is, we still have some masks available for people who need them. The demand at the various sites we have been giving them out has gone down some, so we are no longer having as many of those grocery store events, but there are still these places and times for anyone still seeking one of these masks. It's heartwarming to see how many of them are being worn as I move around the city. Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, there are additional distribution efforts at the Fletcher Free Library there on Wednesday and Saturday. As you can see the hours, and Thursday it's going to be at the Burlington Police Department. If we can move Olivia, to this new initiative that as the mask initiative winds down, we have a new community initiative that's really spinning up, and we announced it last Friday, and there's another announcement with it today, which is anyone who wants to get involved with this Plant for the People initiative, where we are trying to grow here in Burlington and collect 100,000 pounds of additional fresh produce that will be given to our local food shelf over the course of the feeding season. If you want to be involved in that, now's the time to go to the city website, go to that link there on the page, and take the pledge, take the Plant for the People pledge, where you commit to growing some food that you can give to this effort. And this will really help us track in the early stages of this multi-week, really multi-month effort, how we're doing. So we need people to sign up and let us know that they're in for this effort. And then in addition, one thing that you can do as you sign the pledge is there is additional information, I think we may have it on the screen here too, about how we can help supply you for this effort. So we are giving out free starts to help you expand or create a garden. You know, honestly, my mom is an incredible gardener. I've been a big disappointment to her in this area in that I have not planted my own garden for years, but this year we're gonna get involved, and we have some raised boxes in the backyard. Anyone who of modest gardening skill like me, we can help you get started with the free starts from Red Wagon Plants. Friday is the first distribution effort, 4 to 6 p.m. at all of these different locations around the city. And Olivia, do you know, are these all tomato plants, or is there some variety of starts that we're giving out?
You know, I think there is some variety, and I know that the team has also already scheduled 2 additional distributions that will happen at different points in the growing season, where they will be giving out starts that are appropriate for that time of year. And I don't know the specific plants that are going to be available this Friday, but there is a little more information about types of plants and the program in general on the city website.
All right, excellent. So check out the city website for more. Hope to see you at one of these distribution times and locations. And we know this is a real initiative, because not only does it have a logo, it now has a hashtag there, hashtag Plant for People. Let's get this going. You know, it's not going to be easy to get to that 100,000 pound goal. I have a feeling that this community will far surpass it. Look forward to following this initiative in the weeks ahead. I believe if you do sign up for the pledge, if I have this right, Olivia, I think you can also get kind of a yard sign of sorts with that logo on it for you to signal that you are part of this initiative. Is that your understanding as well?
I don't know that we have the yard signs ready to go yet, but I know that that has been talked about and I think is in the works.
Yeah, that's my understanding. So another reason to make the pledge is I do think this is one of those things that once we spread awareness of it through the hashtag, through people putting up these signs showing that they're involved, that will feed on itself, no pun intended, and grow even further. So with that, Olivia, is that we did want to announce, just for people who have been tuning in regularly to these briefings, we did just want to note that we hit the 1,000 responses mark. This is more than 1,000 people now have reached out to the Resource and Recovery Center to offer help or to request help in some element of responding to this emergency. These are people that have reached out to the Resource and Recovery Center that Mike is a part of, and this is, again, the virtual center that you see banners for around town. Again, just want to once again bring attention. Here's how you get in contact with the Resource and Recovery Center for any reason throughout this emergency, it's still going strong, and it's going to stay in place as long as it's needed as we go through this effort. So with that, I think we can open it up if there are any questions, Olivia.
Great, and there are. Our first question is from Sasha Goldstein at 7 Days. And Sasha, I don't see you here on the Zoom stream, so I will go ahead and ask your question for you. Sasha's question is, if a decision has been made officially on the July 3rd fireworks?
We are very close to announcing a decision, Sasha, and I expect to make that announcement next week.
The next question is from Aiden Quigley at VT Digger. And Aiden, you should be able to enable your microphone now.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi. So I'm wondering if you have a reaction to the governor's proposal on housing, which is $42 million for tenants and landlords, and an $8 million housing rehabilitation program aimed to help the homeless.
So I saw the announcement, went through the slide deck quickly. We have been in conversation with the state about a variety of the new initiatives that they announced. I'm happy to see them taking this next step and making it clear that a full $400 million in total is going to be dedicated to relief efforts out of that $1.2 million. That's their proposal. My understanding is this still has to go through the legislative process, and we'll be following it closely as it does. Certainly, I am very happy to see that a substantial part of that allocation is going to housing relief and to serving the homeless. I think, I guess I have slightly different reactions to each of those. One, we know that one of the most challenging parts of coming out of the crisis, coming out of the emergency, is the complicated set of just the relationship between tenants and property owners and lenders. I advocated for, and it was the right answer, just to stop evictions and stop foreclosures as this emergency hit. How you get things going again properly, how you get that system restarted properly is critical. And there's all sorts of opportunity for people to be badly hurt in that. And I see in the governor's announcement today a commitment to make sure there's a real safety net in place to help renters as we come out of this, and to ensure that people do not lose their homes if they've been impacted by this emergency. And this is something the city of Burlington's been very focused on. We have been looking at using some of our relief dollars for a similar effort. One of the reasons we've been waiting a little bit to announce details is we wanted to see how any effort that we do interacts with the state effort. So very happy to see a big number, more than $40 million being committed towards rental assistance. I think that's going to be critical. As far as the homeless funding, significant dollars there, $8 million in this proposal as well. I hope that's enough. Certainly and I know many others are really thinking there is an opportunity here, in the same time that we are responding to this public health emergency and doing right by people at a time when everyone needs a home. If we are going to stay safe and shelter from this virus, that there's an opportunity to build on that and actually make progress against this terrible chronic long-term challenge we have had of a large number of individuals of being chronically homeless in Chittenden County. And I will be looking for the details on that program and whether these dollars can be spent not just to help address immediate homelessness issues, but to really move us towards having more infrastructure, better systems for dealing with our homeless challenges over the long haul. I think we all kind of got a glimpse of what was possible with the innovations at North Beach and through the motel voucher program. Those were not permanent solutions, though. I'm hoping we come out of this. This is one of the ways that we actually improve our community going forward, is by investing these resources in a way that makes long-term progress against this major challenge.
And it looks like that is all we have for questions from members of the media today.
All right, I did see, and Olivia, maybe you maybe you see others. I did see that Representative Bob Hooper had made a post on Facebook as well, and I think, you know, one of the things we're going to start doing in these briefings when we have time, we're scheduling these for up to an hour. When we finish with addressing questions that are coming in from members of the media, we'll try to address questions that come in from the public as well through the Facebook feed. And Bob is asking a question that we have talked about in the past on these briefings, and that we gave a full update on Monday to the City Council, which is, you know, how are we getting ready for June 1 and the likelihood that there are numerous students returning to the Burlington area, and as well as other, you know, how are we getting ready for that? And the answer to that is there's a lot of focus that's going into this. There's been quite a bit of work between the city, UVM, and the state, and that work is ongoing. And we have not announced a final plan on that. The elements of the plan that I'm focused on, that I'm you know, really hoping that we can come to some agreement with our partners on, first of all, involves the governor's quarantine order staying in effect past June 1. I think that's going to happen. I think the governor's made it pretty clear he doesn't see removing that quarantine order until the hotspots that are all around us reduce significantly. When you see, you know, looking back at that COVID Act Now map that we had at the beginning, I think we'll all feel a little bit differently when there's a lot more green around Vermont than there is right now. But as long as we're this sort of island of green within states that have very substantial numbers of new infections continuing to happen, substantial hotspots, I think that quarantine order is going to stay in effect. And so that applies to UVM students or Champlain students. Anyone who's coming back on June 1 is expected to, if they are going to stay overnight, they are by governor order be expected to quarantine for 14 days. Quarantining is a high standard. The idea of a quarantine is that you don't go out of the house for any reason except needing emergency medical services. This is a stricter standard than just the stay home standard that we all were living under for a couple months. So knowing that, first of all, we are working with UVM to make sure that every student who's thinking about coming back on June 1 is aware of that, is aware of what they're going to be expected to do. Students that don't need to come back on June 1 are going to continue to be encouraged to wait until later to return, wait for things to calm down further. I am supportive of students coming back this fall for sure. I've been clear on that I think we need for a lot of reasons. I think it's the right goal to have UVM and Champlain College operating on campus this fall, but that's still a ways out. If people need to come back on June 1st, they shouldn't. And to help support that, we do understand that UVM is providing some support in terms of managing belongings for students on campus. And then one kind of new idea that I think is important for the long haul, and it's something I've been trying to bring attention to in these briefings for some time, is I don't think just telling people they have to quarantine is going to be enough for this coming phase, or really the phase of the emergency we're now in. It is hard to effectively quarantine. I think if we are going to expect, whether it's returning visitors or people who our contact tracers find when they are following up on a new infection, we really want people to do quarantine right, to really seal themselves off and not be leaving their homes. We need to support them in that quarantine. The city is willing to provide some real effort and frankly put some resources into this, but we're going to need some cooperation from the UVM and the state to do that right. And we're in conversations about that, communications about that now, and hoping to finalize those soon. The final piece of this, big piece of this to make this work is testing. Students who come back or other people who come into Vermont and quarantine should be tested partway through their quarantine. This is a way, if we will quickly catch, and in addition to the quarantine effort, if you combine that with testing, I think that will give us really the potential to catch a lot of potential outbreaks at a very early stage if we put all these things together and include testing. And so we're working on the details of that as well. Olivia, is there anything else coming in from Facebook that I should address in the final minutes here?
It looks like a number of the other comments on the Facebook live stream are also about the June 1st move-in. There are some specific questions about concerns about relying on students to self-regulate. So that's related to the theme that you were just speaking to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we should. I think first of all, I live right in a student part of the city, and I know many of the Vermont students, the Burlington students, work really hard to be responsible members of our community, and I think the great majority of them will attempt to follow the guidelines if they're clearly communicated to them, if they're fully aware of them, and I think that's the first step is to put that in front of them. And we are throughout this crisis to a certain degree we've only gotten done as well as we have because people have taken these orders seriously, and we've had a very high level of compliance, and I expect that students will understand that responsibility falls to them as well, and I think many of them will be good citizens and follow it. But what I am suggesting is I don't think we should just leave it at that. I think the institutions need to build on that and provide support during quarantine. I think we should find a way so that it is much easier for people to observe those quarantine orders. I think people need help with food, with getting medicines if that's necessary, with perhaps cleaning supplies, Wi-Fi, entertainment. There's a lot of discussions in public health circles across the country about these supported quarantine services. And we're on the front as one of the first states coming out of the stay home posture. I think we're at the leading edge of actually getting these services moving. The city kind of stands ready to play a supportive role in this. We can't do it alone though, of course, in that we don't know, we don't have the direct communications with students. We don't have the public health authority to be doing the testing. We don't have the information regarding who tests positive. These are all functions of the state, and that's why there needs to be good coordination between UVM, the state, and the city for this to succeed.
And it doesn't look like we have additional questions.
All right, great. Well, let me just summarize. Why don't we close by just looking ahead to the rest of the week? What else can people look for? Tomorrow at noon, the RRC is hosting a webinar again on veterans and the challenges they are facing, the mental health challenges they're facing in this pandemic and during these exceptional times. That's a free webinar series. Go to the RRC's webpage for more information on how to join that and zoom into that. We will be back on Friday with another briefing at 2 o'clock going into the weekend. I'm sure we'll be talking about the new guidance that has been coming out over the last couple of days that govern beaches and public spaces. So we'll have more information about that on Friday. We do expect one more press conference from the governor on Friday as well, and there could well be additional loosening that we want to talk about headed into the weekend. We also will have a budget meeting tomorrow night, which is the next step in our efforts to totally rewrite the budget that we had planned for FY21, which begins in July, to respond to our new circumstances, where many of our revenues are down significantly. So there is information on the city website for anyone who wants to join to be part of that public meeting. It's a Board of Finance meeting, but all city councilors are invited to attend work as well. So that's also going on, and I think that is it. Can you think of anything I missed there, Olivia?
No, that all seems right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Enjoy the good weather. It looks like we're gonna have a great stretch. I do encourage people to think about the strategies we talked about today and how they work with each other. These 4 big strategies of hygiene, washing of hands, don't touch your face when you're out in public. All of those efforts that we've wiping down counters, everything we've talked about there for months now. The distancing, 6 feet makes a difference. Even if you're wearing a mask, you should be separating yourself from other households when you are out in public or interacting with significant numbers of other people. Screening is this technique, for organizations, for people to kind of do a daily health screening before they decide to go into work. And then finally, the face coverings that we talked a lot about. We'll keep talking about these, but want to leave you with those thoughts as we head into this great weather here, and I expect more people to be out, starting to enjoy all of what Burlington has to offer. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Have a good day.